Seth Dillon is with us. He is the CEO of the Babylon B, and wanted to get him in today to talk a little bit about the debate and where we are. What did you think of the debate last night?
Well, I went on the internet where people tell me what to think.
Yes.
And
yes. Yeah. So what did they tell you?
What did they tell me to think?
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. I don't know how to judge how someone won a debate like this, because there's so many people on stage vying for attention, and sometimes the person who gets the most attention is the winner, even if they didn't do the best.
Right.
I feel like that was probably Vivek, because I mean, it seemed like it was like Pence and Vivek going at it like half the time.
Right.
There was a lot of back and forth between them.
Right. And Pence was kind of creepy, didn't you think?
Yeah. At the beginning, very smiley, like excessively smiley. and
then went a little dark.
Yeah, and that was a little weird for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, to your comment, it was his first time, and he handled himself very well.
Yeah.
I think he really did. But I don't know how to pick a winner in these things.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think whoever we're talking about the most, whoever people are either attacking or praising the most, is the winner of the thing. And so you just have to kind of see who's trending on Twitter, I guess.
So
X. X.
Yeah, like that's going to catch on. Who was the official winner?
Yes, Daily Mail came out with the first, what I've seen, scientific poll, for what that's worth. Who had the best debate performance? Number one was Vivek Ramaswamy, 28%. Ron DeSantis, number two, 27%. Mike Pence was number three, 13%. I think I'm not surprised by that. I mean, because to your point, he was aggressive.
He was very aggressive and engaged.
You know, he got in the middle of it, and his views I don't think are exactly aligned with voters right now in the party, but he was aggressive, and he was in the middle of those fights. He had some good points mixed in there, and for a guy who has really not made any noise at all, and all you're talking about is turning up the volume a little bit, right?
He was so active. Had there been a fly on his head, it probably would have flown off.
Yes, possibly, questionably.
Yeah.
Tim Scott was next at 8. That one was strange because I didn't think he didn't really seem to stand out at all to me. Nikki Haley, 7%. Chris Christie, 4%. Doug Bergamentum at 3%, and Asa Hutchinson at 2%. Poor Asa.
Oh, man, I wish we had the transporter from Star Trek, because I would have beamed a lot of them right back up. So you also have the book about gender, the Babylon Bee Guide to Gender. Not a single question about this.
No, that was shocking.
Not one.
I noticed that. Not one. Well, you've got Fox running the thing, right? Yeah. And Fox has been under some fire recently from the right for being kind of like squishy or possibly even like pro-trans on some issues, you know? So I was not really surprised by it, but I was disappointed that it was. I mean, it's like that's like the cultural issue of our time right now. It's the reason we wrote this book.
Well, does this help us define a woman? Because there is a test in here.
Listen, we are not biologists.
Right.
So this you can't.
You can't know. So
we wouldn't be qualified to give you a definition of woman.
Yeah. Well, your test, still not sure if you're a woman. Take the test. Are you always cold? No.
I am always cold, though. Yeah. So crap, that's one point.
Has a human ever popped out of you? No.
I don't think so.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you ever decorated a bed with 6 or more pillows? I refuse to answer. Can you tell the difference between cream white and rustic farmhouse white?
Oh, yeah.
I refuse.
Glenn definitely can. Glenn's got 2 points so far.
Yeah. Have you run into a curb in the past 24 hours? Be honest, Carol. Do you bleed, like for an extended period of time at regular intervals? Does it take you over 3 hours to decide what you want to eat? Are you currently a member of at least 3 pyramid schemes?
Again, this just allows us to draw general inferences, though. But because we're not biologists, we can't say definitively.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
this quiz will give you a good idea.
Right. Do you find simple movie plots hard to follow? Do you frequently describe your emotional state as fine when you're not, in fact, fine? Is your Starbucks drink order anything other than black coffee? Do you listen to Harry Styles? Do you know who Harry Styles is? That's great. That's great.
So we had this problem, for most of human history. we didn't have science. We were all a bunch of bigots, and we thought that there were just men and women.
Right.
And then science was invented very recently, and they determined that men can get pregnant and that women can suffer testicle injuries. And so once scientists discovered that, it opened up this huge, awesome opportunity to explore the gender spectrum and how truly infinite it is.
Yeah, I was really happy that Nikki Haley multiple times pointed out that she was a woman, because how else would we know?
Right.
As onlookers, we wouldn't know she was the only female candidate, but she pointed it out like every 3 or 4 words.
She had to say it.
Right, yes.
But is she a biologist? Does she know?
Does she even know? Yeah.
Does she even know?
That's a great point.
I mean,
well, I make that reference because this was that comes from the Supreme Court nomination. You've got a situation where you've got somebody getting confirmed to the Supreme Court saying, I cannot define what a woman is. That's how insane we've become.
And I think, too,
that's how insane we've become. And so to satirize it, you really don't have to satirize this.
No, you don't.
You really just have to hold it up there and say, look how absurd this is.
And
that's kind of what this book does. We don't really have to go much further than the Democrats.
Can't. Yeah. And you can't. Where else do you go?
Right. Right. I tell people all the time, they think our job is easier than ever because the world is so crazy. And I say, imagine if your job is to write jokes that are funnier than what Democrats are doing in real life. That's your job.
It's impossible.
Good luck.
That's why you guys keep predicting the future, right? Like
exactly.
You keep writing these fake articles and then they come true like 6 months later.
Yeah. We have a lot of those.
There are times when I honestly look at something and laugh because I think it's you.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh, dear God, no. This is real.
Well, there's just that, I think it was New York Times op-ed about how elections are bad for democracy.
Yeah.
Or something like that. We had made a joke about that. And that's another one of those ones that came true. It's just, it's wild.
So are we close to the end yet? I mean, end of the insanity, not end of the country or anything else. But there are some, for instance, comedy is coming back. Yeah. And it's coming roaring back. Yeah. I think. You're seeing things that just 3-4 years ago you would have never seen. Right. Never seen.
Well, when in comedy you're saying?
Yeah.
I do appreciate that and I think a big part of the shift will be when comedians start taking this stuff less seriously and actually joke about it. This is one of the problems that we've had from my perspective doing humor and satire is there are so many of these comedians, especially the late night talk shows, stuff like that is just propping up the popular narrative and not challenging it and poking holes in it.
It's almost propaganda.
It is propaganda, and propaganda is not funny.
No.
But then you've still got guys like Bill Maher, for example, who I disagree with on almost everything. He did a monologue on the whole gender issue and talked about how crazy it was. He joked about how when he was a kid, he wanted to be a pirate. Thank God no one scheduled him for peg leg surgery and eye removal. And that was funny. And those kinds of jokes, people don't understand the power of comedy to undermine these bad ideas and make them seem absurd. And it's been my contention for a long time, I've said this for a long time, that the absurd has only become so popular and sacred where you can't even criticize it because it hasn't been mocked enough.
Well, that is the one thing that dictators and authoritarian figures hate the most.
Yeah,
being mocked.
Yep.
Because once they mock you, I mean, look at how popular comedy was when they were mocking the right.
Right.
And you had Jon Stewart, you had all these people mocking the right, mocking our society.
It was very effective.
Worked.
Extremely effective.
Absolutely worked. And then all of a sudden, all those shows went away.
Well, it's working in the other way now where they're all in support of the narrative and the powers that be, and so they're not challenging it, and so that just allows them to maintain their power instead of undermining it. And the comedian's primary job, really, besides making you laugh, which is really rule number one, is to speak truth to power, right? Just doing it through humor and mockery and making fun of them, poking holes in the popular narrative. So I think if we do that, if we start seeing comedians do that, if people start to really wake up, especially now that kids are involved in all of this, you see parents waking up and speaking up about these things. If people actually get the courage to start challenging this stuff and pointing out how crazy it is, then I think the pendulum does swing back the other way.
How much of that do you believe?
Well, it all depends on if that actually happens.
Yeah.
If it actually happens, I think we make a lot of progress.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll be the lone lunatics who seem like lunatics who are still saying that 2 and 2 make 4.
Yeah. Is your job at all kind of depressing because you're pointing these things out and comedy is fun. Yeah. It's fun. It's hard work, but it's fun. But when you're writing it and then you see it come true, do you ever sit around with everybody going, Good God, man! What I mean,
it is disconcerting when the jokes come true. It is. I mean, we do get a laugh out of it. It's always we have this list. We have a spreadsheet where we're tracking the fulfilled prophecies, and there's nearly 100. I think we're at like 97 or so.
That's
like
crazy.
We're about to hit 100 of these. Where over the course of the B was started in 2016, so we didn't have a lot of them early on, but lately it's been ramping up, and they're coming true more and more quickly. Sometimes we'll publish an article, and within a matter of hours, it comes true, and it's reported in the headlines. So that is disconcerting.
Can we get that list? I'd love to go over that.
Oh
list
yeah,
with you.
yeah. Like right now.
Well, no.
Okay, at some time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a spreadsheet. I think I have a link to it in my bio. I have like the link tree, and there's a link to it in there. Someone could pull it up if they wanted to. But yeah, we have we track them in a spreadsheet. So it's insane. It is disconcerting. It is somewhat depressing that the people think that. They often criticize us. Our jokes are too close to reality, and that's why people believe them. And that's not the case. It's that reality is too close to satire.
Correct.
And that's why people believe our jokes, because the real headlines. You remember the headline from a couple of years ago? I think this is a great example of how shark attacks are being rebranded as negative interactions because it's like stigmatizes the sharks as these violent creatures. I'm like, that is comedy. It's comedy,
yes.
but it's in the New York Post. It's a real headline, and so like those kinds of things, it's just. You laugh or cry, Glenn. I don't know. I mean,
I think you're gonna. I think we're going to come back when we're past this emotionally.
Yeah.
And we're away from it, and we've hopefully rediscovered the truth. The truth will be rediscovered. It's just whether we destroy ourselves completely before we rediscover.
Before we have to rebuild from the ground up.
Correct, but it will be rediscovered, and when it does, people will look back at this time. I mean, they will write about this period of history in so many different ways. I think the destruction, the way the left has pulled this off, is brilliant.
Yeah,
it's
happened quickly too. I mentioned Bill Maher a minute ago. Dennis Prager was on Bill Maher's show a few years ago. You remember this clip from what is it, 2018? I don't know when it was.
Yeah.
Not that long ago.
No, I think it was.
And
18.
he was talking about how they were starting to put tampons in the boys' restroom. Mm-hmm. And Bill Maher and his audience thought that was hysterical. You're out of your mind. You're making that up. It's not really happening. I mean, that's how quickly it's gone.
So tell me, who's this book targeted to? Me? Or is this a book that, because I want to ask the people who have gone down this road where I've got to have tampons in the boys' room.
Yeah.
You would have thought that was insane. In fact, the clip that you're talking about, they did.
All the Democrats in the room thought it was crazy.
All of them thought it was crazy.
Yeah.
There's no new evidence that has been, we haven't found, hey, look at this. It's a removable penis on, on old bones that we found.
Right.
Nothing has changed.
Right.
Except people have just told you that you have to say these things, and this is the new science.
Yeah.
Do you think people will pick this up and maybe go
second guess it?
Yeah,
I think they might. So one of our most popular articles ever was about how a motorcyclist identified as a bicyclist and set a world record. And it went crazy viral. Great. It got like 6 million or 8 million shares or something like that on Facebook. And I got a steady stream of emails from people, no joke, emailing me, straight face, saying, I didn't really understand the men and women's sports issue. What the issue is, I thought it was all about tolerance and acceptance until I read this article. It like made it clear for me how crazy this is. It really does actually have an impact on people's thinking when you draw out the absurdity of it that way by putting it in a humorous context. So I don't know. Can you hand this book to a liberal Democrat who's on board with all this stuff, and they will all of a sudden renounce all of it? I don't know that that's necessarily the case. But
I'm going to leave one in.
But
the
a reasonable
person
reading through this, I think, will find a lot of it funny, and they'll find it funny because it's true.
Yeah.
And like you said, the truth the truth will assert itself.
Yes.
At some point.
Yes.
And you can't overcome that.
Yeah. Thanks so much for being here, Seth. The name of the book is Babylon Bee Guide to Gender. It is pre-sale right now. Comprehensive handbook to men, women, and the millions of new genders we just made up. From Babylon Bee. Thanks, Seth. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Glenn.